Hi everybody. In this lesson we're going to learn how to read text from a file instead of only reading what somebody types at the console. So let's get started. The only input and output we've done so far is from the console. When we wanted to write something out, we did system.out.println or system.out.print, and when we wanted to read something in, we used the scanner class. Now we're going to read text in from a file. We're still going to use the scanner class, so a lot of what we know can be directly applied. But we need to hook it up to a file instead of to system.in, which was the console, the keyboard. So let's see how we do that. To use the scanner with a file, I'm still going to have to create a variable that's an object of type scanner. So I'll still have to say scanner. Instead of console, I'll call this one my file. And let's say I'm going to now have to create my file is a new scanner. What we used to do in these parentheses is say system.in. Well, now I'm going to pass it, instead of system.in, I'm going to pass it a file object. Well, that means I have to create a file object. So I can pass in a new file, and here's the name of the file. While my file has next, Word is going to be my file.next. So let's look at what's happening in this code right here. I have to create the scanner, my file. When I create it, I have to give it a file name, and then my file is hooked up as a scanner. It can do everything a scanner can do. We've used .next in a scanner before. We've never used this .hasNext. Terribly useful for us because it returns either a true or a false. If there's more data in the file, this will be true. If we've already hit the end of the file, this will be false. So I can go through a loop. I don't know how many times I'll go through, so I use while instead of for. But while there's something left in the file, get it. Come back up and check. Is there still something left? If so, get it. Come back up and check. Is there still something left? No, I've used up the whole file. Then I exit the while loop. Now when we start using files, all of a sudden there's new problems that we can have. Suppose I typed the name of a file in wrong, or I don't have permission to open that file, or it's not in the directory that I thought it was in. Whenever we construct a new file, there's a possibility that the runtime error file not found exception is going to occur. The file class constructor, what gets executed when we do new file, throws an exception. We saw how we can catch exceptions before. This one throws an exception saying, I'm not going to handle it myself, but anybody that calls me needs to handle it. So either we've got to catch file not found exception in our code, or we throw it up to the person that called us. That's usually easier to do. So we're going to add a new phrase to the end of the first line of our method, which might have been public static void main. It might have been some other method. We're going to add a new phrase to the end of it that says throws file not found exception. Now you don't need to remember this syntax, because if you forget to do it, Eclipse will complain and it'll say, hey, do you want me to put this in for you? And we're going to take advantage of that. When you get to the practice video in Eclipse, we're going to do exactly that and see how Eclipse puts that in for us. So for the next 3 pages, I'm going to just show you an extended code example. Here's code that works. And then when we get to the practice video, we'll be building it line by line, and you'll see what happens as we go along and when Eclipse has to help us out and what errors we might make and so on. But here is some code that actually works. I've got a public static void main string args. I've added this new phrase, throws file not found exception. Now I'm going to have 2 scanners in this program. One of them is going to be my standard system in, so that I can type something on the console. Then on the next page you'll see that I'm going to put another scanner in for my file. Why am I doing this? Because I'm going to ask you, the user, to type in, hey, what's the file name you want me to read? So, scanner console is new scanner system in. I'll get a string variable called file name, and I'm going to create an array of strings called word list. That's going to be new string 1000. So I can read in up to 1,000 words. I'll set the number of words that I've read in so far equal to 0, and then I'll print enter the file name. And I'll get the next line that you type from the console and put that into file name. I'm ready to use that now. So let's look at the next page, page 2 of 3. This section of the code reads the file in and stores each word as an element in that array. So I've got my second scanner of this program. This scanner I've called myFile instead of console. How do I initialize it? It's a new scanner, and instead of passing in system.in, I'm passing in a new file created from this file name. If that worked, then my file is ready to have me read from it. If it didn't work, it will have thrown the exception file not found, and I'll have an error at the bottom of my Eclipse console saying file not found. We'll practice that. We'll make some mistakes so you can see what will happen. But now that I've got my file opened up, while my file has next, meaning while there's still stuff there, I haven't hit the end of file, I'm going to read my file.next. That'll give me a string and put it into my word list. Add 1 to the number of words. Remember, my word list has 1,000 entries in it. My file might only have 500 words, might only have 2 words, might have 998 words. So I'm going to keep track of how many words I actually filled up, and then close the file that I was reading from. Let's look at our last page. Now we're going to print the words out, 1 per line, on the console. So here I've got a for loop, I equals 0, I less than num words. Notice I didn't use wordlist.length, which would be 1,000. I said the number of words that I've actually put some data into. And then I just do system.println wordlist sub I. So we're going to build that one in our practice video and see what happens.